We are settling in, finding the back of the body on the mat, however you'd like to approach that, whether it's moving, fidgeting, and just getting an initial sense of how you're feeling through the back of yourself. It might be that we are scrunching and extending the toes, really just to feel those against the floor. Again, some rocking would be appropriate just to get an understanding of the breadth of the back of you. And in time, you're going to begin to sense that as a whole body. Toes and feet, head, shoulders, pelvis, maybe even heading towards elbows, hands. And what other points of contact do you notice with the ground? And then, having gained an understanding of that, really feel that the front of you, the whole frontal line, is falling away from your clothes. So ribs just falling away from your t-shirt, front of the hips again just falling away from your bottoms, maybe even the shins just dropping away from the front of your clothing. Taking a breath in through the nose and a breath out through the mouth. And as you breathe out through the mouth again, with that feeling of letting go, you're going to experience all of those areas simultaneously falling back. As you breathe in, you'll get a sense of inflation and maybe a push back up to the material on your body, and the breath out will have you falling back and away from that. You're going to continue to use that as an idea in this initial movement and really focus on the inflation and the deflation through the upper part of your body. So that the next time you take your breath out and you feel the upper chest move away from the material of your clothes, you'll stand into the feet, tilt the pelvis, and continue to feel that sense of falling backwards as your pelvis is lifting. As you breathe out, exhale, will bring about that sense of weight and deflation to start your process of returning. See whether, as you're falling backwards here with the upper body, you can allow the arms to move where they move. Maybe it's more hands, maybe it's more front of shoulders, really based on what the spine does. So be aware of repositioning the arms. Could they just be as they are? It can feel different. So that as you're heading upwards, it might even be a sense of the spine moving upwards as well. And as you exhale to return, you might feel that the hands and arms, whilst in a similar place on the mat, you feel different. So really refraining from repositioning if you can. I'm going to take one more of these. And then we're going to return to the pelvis and begin to sway the pelvis from side to side. As a result of that, the legs move. But the movement is being led to what is closest to your center. If you felt that the position of your arms here were a little restricted and you wanted to move them away from your body, taking them away and giving you a sense of a more freedom through the side body, more space perhaps, then alter your position. But we're going to look to keep the legs in a similar alignment. So notice how they haven't come next to each other. You've left them where they were for bridging. Without creating any effect for the feet, notice that as the pelvis rolls and the legs fall, you are transferring the weight quite softly from the outside and inside edge of one foot to the inside and then outside edge of the other foot. Let that be pelvis, legs, and then feet. As the pelvis rolls next towards your screen, bring yourself onto your side, grab your head cushions, and we will head into upper body rotation here. Just checking in with what you feel you might need today in terms of height. If you're working on a soft cushion, which I would recommend, something that's got some give in it, set yourself up, really relax the head. And as you breathe out, head drops into the cushion. Collarbone wide there as you're heading round. Inhale when you're open. And exhale to bring you back to your starting position. This rotation pattern is moving from the top of the body in a downwards direction. Again, it's unforced. The arm leads you certainly until the ceiling point, and then you could imagine the chest widening as you head round there a little further. Notice any lightness through the lower half of the body and see whether you can keep that sense of being grounded, particularly through the legs. So heading over onto your second side, again setting up. If the pelvis were on the mat here and it were rolling side to side, you're really looking for the balance there. So it could be that you sort of play around with the pelvis position initially, depending on the width of the shoulders, and then narrowing through the waist. You may very well find that the waist is off the floor. Heavy head. Last one on this side. If you ever feel like you'd like to take a few more, then absolutely go for that, depending on how it feels with that handful there. If you bring yourself onto your back, and you could keep a little head cushion. I'm going to do a little bit of more mobility through the hips. So finding yourself back on your back, again, taking a moment to fit it around there. How does that feel in comparison to your start? Maybe there's more heaviness into the floor. Maybe for you it's different. You're noticing more the lighter parts of the spine, but just really acknowledging that. And then you're going to bring the knees separately into the chest. And initially we're going to look at using their legs as a lever to subtly change the shape of the lower spine relative to the mat. So here, as the knees draw closer, exhaling, and as the legs move away from you, inhaling. For some, it's more comfortable to have space between the knees and feet. So you could try that as an option, depending on what you notice. Maybe a little bit of rotation outwards as well, again, depending on what you notice. And then wherever you are, your circles might be narrow, or they might be as wide as you're starting. You're going to begin to circle the thigh bones within the hips, applying a little bit of pressure to the tops of the legs. So where your hand is currently meeting your leg, the highest point sort of relative to your orientation now. I'm just going to gently draw the thigh bones a little deeper into the hips as you're circling. Now there's definitely contact here. Be aware of your hands really mimicking contact, and therefore your legs trying to take over and moving away from you too far. So actually, and of course it depends on the size of your natural lower back curve, but actually we're not looking to be extending and flexing through the lower back. We're looking to have maintained some contact throughout. So for most people that would then look like flexing and flexing as opposed to the pelvis rocking. Change direction. If you'd prefer to take a pause, you could take a pause. Again, this wants to become more taxing on the hands and arms than it is on the legs, if possible. So you're really focusing on the dominance of the arms controlling the movement. Notice how smooth the experience is for you, right and left, picking up on things that might be showing themselves for you. And then what we're going to look to do is release one of the legs, and that's going to come down and along the mat, so reaching long. See whether the other leg can stay roughly where it was. As you did previously with both of the knees, we're going to begin to draw one of the knees in towards the chest and send it away again. If this works better for you to be rotated outward once more, to have the knee out to the side, then look at that as an option. It's not a question of could you go further if you switch the position. It's more about the sensation. Now, how is it feeling deep here through the front of the hip? How is it feeling down the side body? Are you aware of any lifting of the crest of the hip there? And of course through the back of the leg, if it feels particularly tight, and there's no reason why you couldn't generate some heat with the hand there. So we're looking at using this to help us with our single leg kick. We've sort of got both things happening at the moment, where we're drawing the knee into the chest, and then you could begin to send the leg away into the cupped hands. So that resisted contact that you might see in an assisted roll-up or anything whereby the hands and the legs are connected. So we've just looked to deepen the position. I'm going to get you to bring both legs down and sort of notice that. I'm also going to get you to straighten both legs and notice that. And then you're going to draw the other knee into the chest. Again, staying long through the waist, reaching one of the legs long and away from you. And we start to draw in and relax off of that idea with the opposite leg. And again, maybe this could be one hand, maybe the leg could be moving out to the side for now, in terms of it feeling a little more comfortable, not necessarily about the range. Just notice how this is here. It can be quite switched on. And then just the applied pressure of the hand. So of course the hands are drawing the leg in, but could the hands then just gently be pushed by the leg back out again? So in with the arms and away with the leg. How you might initiate an assisted roll-up. So from here, once more, bring your legs so that they're both bent. Just notice how that feels. And then straightening both legs out again. Notice how how that feels. And then from there, I've been on a little head cushion. I'm just going to remove that just for the sake of feeling the back of the head against the floor. We're going to head into our shoulder drop sequence, which will take us into our 100. So the arms are moving up towards the ceiling here. We're going to start with the palms facing in towards each other. So you've got your vertical arms. As you breathe out, the backs of the shoulders move away from the floor. So therefore they send your fingertips to the ceiling. And as you breathe in, the backs of the shoulders head back down again. Breathing out for the upward movement, breathing in for the downward. Whilst you are coming downwards, you're keeping the elbows straight. Notice where the spine heads as the blades come off. And then this is your pattern for curling up. So each time you take a curl up, you'll preempt it with the reach of the shoulder drop to curl you up. And then as you breathe in, long, to lay yourself back down again. Breath out for the moment upwards. And in for the down. Notice the height, the position of the arms, middle of the thigh. And as you breathe out next, you'll curl up and hold. You're going to inhale for 5 and exhale for 5. Last 5 here, which has taken us to 50. Lay yourself down and then bring your legs in towards the chest. We're holding on to the backs of the legs. We're just going to use this motion for a curl up to seated. And then once we're up, we're going to roll down again and we're going to look at staying in the curled up position with the knee drawn into the chest, just as we've prepped in terms of through the hip. For simplicity, we're going to take both hands, whether they're interlaced or one resting on top, onto one of the knees to draw the knee in, but we're staying up in that flexed position. So we've prepped the whole movement, but we've just not put it together yet. The feet push down and away, and you're going to begin to tilt the pelvis towards the rib cage. Now this approach, I tend to be too high to begin with, just to get a feeling. Now I'm holding myself up with the arms, hands and legs. There's a little bit of leg still dropping away from me to help with that. And then I'm going to make the adjustment whereby the torso's working harder the closer the legs come into the chest. The elbows widen to accommodate that, and the shoulder blades are spread wide, almost like they're matching the curve of the elbow. So if you then release one of your legs and draw one knee into your chest, as that's coming in, you're still connecting by pushing the leg into the hand as well, and then you're going to switch. Refine the position, perhaps the leg doesn't come in as tight, and then you switch. So at the moment I have interlaced fingers and I'm keeping them interlaced so that they can cup the shin bone. You could have one hand resting on top of the other if you'd prefer, and then you're switching. And you're looking to keep yourself right down the middle if you can, which means that as the legs are switching, the big toes are whizzing past each other. The leg that reaches long and away from you could lower down if you feel like you are able to continuously connect the lower spine to the mat. And then we'll take one more from here, bring the knees into the chest. If the legs once more push forward into the hands, that's going to bring you all the way up into your seated position. We're going to head into roll up. But before we do, so that we have put some length through the entire back of the body, a little more, we're going to take a spine stretch. So fingertip touch down on the mat as you take your breath out, lowering your gaze, and feel free to have softness through the knees, back ribs back. As you inhale, you're unraveling and bringing yourself back up to your starting position. Breathing out, lowering the gaze, sending the back ribs back. There's a feeling of up and over here, which means that as you lower the gaze initially, you're maintaining the length down the side body as you take yourself over. Soft knees if you want to. We're not necessarily pausing in the stretch. We are creating a little bit more give down the back of the body. Of course, you could be on a block here as well with your bent knees. We'll take one more of these. And then we are heading into roll up, and with our roll up, your choice, band and a cushion. Maybe it's just the cushion today, maybe it's just the band today, or you could be band free. So you're starting sitting tall. Again, there's softness through the knees, just in terms of what we've been working on with the spirals of the arms. Palms are facing in to start off with. And then as you start to tilt the pelvis a little, like you might do once you've hovered it for a bridge, the arm bones are going to begin to turn in towards each other as you're heading down. You arc the arms upwards and backwards, reaching them away from you. Palms are back facing inwards there. And then as they find their way to the ceiling, they'll turn to face away from you, just as they did in the prep. And then you're drawing your ribs inwards and upwards. This time the arms are high, of course. And from that moment then, there isn't a moment where you're going to take your long sit. Feel free to soften your knees. You take your breath out and you start to roll down from there. And you're gathering yourself as you move in terms of arm position, gaze. Exhale, fingers moving to the ceiling. That's the reach of your shoulder drop. Ribs are drawing in. You're still long through the side body, up and over there. I'll take one more of these. And then the pelvis is going to move towards the heels. And we're going to look at our rolling back, which has us tilting towards the rib cage, floating and floating, and keeping this sense of openness, but being aware that's not going to increase in its angle. So really, as you take your breath in and you start to find your blades, you want to be aware of the shins and the feet flying backwards. It's hard. There's nothing to prevent them from doing so other than you being aware. You're still heading for your blades, and it's a breath in to take you back. Options to move this into rolling like a ball where we tighten up. The gaze definitely lowers because we've tightened up. There's an elongated curve, of course, from crown to tail. Inhale. Exhale to bring you back. And if it comes out quite quickly, fiery like that, you will find that you move quicker. Last one, your choice. When you're up and back there, we're going to head into our side bending movement of Mermaid. Feel free to grab your block and bring the pelvis a little higher. I'm going to use those cushions today. Just find yourself first. Of course, we've got some external rotation here through this front leg. So that thigh bone is not sitting directly in the hip socket. It's rotated outwards. Notice how that is for you today. Do you need anything to prop up the knee? Is the pelvis high enough that the knee can fall? So notice how the block could help you out there. And then of course the other leg, that thigh bone isn't sitting centrally in the hip either. It's rotated inwards, moving slightly forwards in the hip, as you can probably notice. The foot is close in, if that's possible. You're more of a pointed foot behind you then. And then once you have given yourself time to find that with as much ease as you can, you're going to lift the arm, take a breath in and take yourself up and over to your side bend. Breath in when you're here and breath out to bring you back. Inhaling. Where we're moving to here is going to be side bend on the arm. Before we take that on that side today, we're actually going to take the side bend in the opposite direction first. And it's just sort of holding on to your knowledge of your position as we're partially weight bearing here, and then seeing whether you can transfer it in a moment. So just giving the hips a chance to settle. Maybe they're talking to you and asking you to change your position. Ultimately, can the spine feel like it's central and we're not being thrown towards the front leg? Take your breath in. Keep on reaching. Inhale. And as you exhale, you are bringing yourself back there. Last one. I'm going to head back to the first side in terms of how we're organising this. And for your side bend option, you're going to Either stay with the front leg underneath the back leg in a tighter position that does require you to have leant to one side, and take your side bend here, remembering that it is a bend that we're aiming for. We have prepped with Mermaid, and you could look at that as a continuation of where we've just been. The other option would be to extend the legs away from you. So you've elongated the knee bend. Your legs are further away from your torso, which challenges the torso in that way. The top foot is going to stagger forwards here. If you also felt you needed to move your arm further away, you could do, depending on how that feels in the first instance, all of the above. Collarbone is wide. Upper arm bone has then spiraled round for you to be connected into the shoulder blade as much as you can. And you're doing that with thought as much as searching for sensation. You're going to push down with your feet. And as you do so, you take your arm to your ear, mermaid style. You're pushing down into the floor to create as much bend there as you can. And then really aware as you start to come down towards the floor of this organisation altering. Because you might feel that you're dropping back very slightly from the arm to find the mat once more. You are, of course, higher up with your legs straight. So you could also be thinking about the floor is further away than it might be if your legs were bent. So there's an endurance element there on the way down. So as well as concentrating, you're having to stay organised for a little longer as you decrease gradually the load and bring yourself all the way back down again. Taking one more if you want to, depending on how it feels. Feet are pushing down. We are looking at being on the edges of the feet. You might feel like the front leg wants to flatten, the front foot wants to flatten out. And maybe just to give you a little bit more feeling of support and safety, that would be fine. Back foot will probably be on its edge. See how that feels. Of course, wherever you land with your feet, the pelvis is looking to be in alignment with the ribs as much as you can sense that, of course. So we've switched to the other mermaid side and taken ourselves through the progression of front leg coming underneath. Weight bearing on the arm for the first time in the session. Maybe you even start with your legs bent. If you'd like to elongate the position, increasing the load already. Stagger the feet to give you a wider base, and then maybe moving the arm as well, depending on how it feels. It's a little bit like you're rotating under in some ways, where you're moving the torso over the arm. Even though we don't have a thread the needle rotation here, as you're pushing down and hovering, you're moving the torso over the arm. Inhale when you're here. And then again, the floor's far away. Stay engaged, stay connected, stay focused. Sending the floor away with the hand that is supporting you, watching your gaze. You know, when the gaze drops, the whole body responds. It is that where you look is where you travel, body-wise. And then breathing out to head back down again. Now, if you quickly come onto your back, we're just going to prep for swimming with an arm arc leg slide. If you wanted a little cushion, you could take that. But with this arm arc leg slide, as opposed to same arm as leg, we're just going to take the opposite arm and leg. And it's really so that immediately prior to the swimming, we get a sense of the openness through the hip and the openness through the chest. So if you slide your leg and opposite arm away from each other, connect into that diagonal in terms of reach. Notice where the arm gets. Remember that it's not about this hand touching the floor, but it's important to recognize where is comfortable at this time relative to your head and relative to your gaze. As we go through this process, we're looking to mimic, without the spine extension of course, what both the arms and legs will be doing once we do flip over onto our front. So we have an arm arc with palms facing in. If you tend to take an arm arc and the arm goes wider, and that is helpful for you as you end up in the swimming position, then that's what you'll be covering right now. We're really trying to stay in contact with the floor so that the front of the body continues to feel like it's opening. And of course that is even more so the case as we head round onto our front. So 1 or 2 more if you want to. This has been opposite arm and leg, as opposed to same arm as leg, where we might ordinarily take an arm arc leg slide. So where was your arm arc? What did you notice about it? Can you bring that now to laying on your front? So if you were a little wider, laying on your back with the arms, as that felt more comfortable, then that would be where you head to now. So again, fidgeting around in that when you lay on your front initially, that's really one of the ways in which you can get to understand how the body is feeling in that moment. You're walking your legs away from your pelvis, and I would say for certain that your head is off the floor. To what degree is going to be dependent on your range of shoulder movement here. So how does that feel? With all things laying on our front, we're really looking to utilize the pelvis, almost as if it's our center point lengthways. It pushes down into the mat. And then from there, one leg and one arm, the opposite, in a very similar way to how we've just moved, are going to reach long and away from that center point. So sliding and reaching. Head stays up. You might find that the head lifts and lowers very slightly. That would be fine. But just really watching out for a moment where perhaps you're not in the same relationship with your head and gaze, remember, with the upper arm as you were when you were laying on your back. If you reach the fingers away and lower the head slightly, you can still see your arms if you need to see your arms. Send the pelvis down and reach both legs and arms away from each other. Now we're looking for similar heights. So if the upper body is lifted, then the legs are looking to match that in their height. And of course, that is very much feeling and finding. Still reaching long, both diagonals. And now we're paddling down towards the floor with the height. Palms facing in. Open ankles. Pause and reach. And lower with length. And then bring yourself up into your child's pose. So again, knees and feet ideally are together. But if you found yourself laying on your back initially and you preferred some space between the knees and the feet, you might head there in terms of the deep fold at the front of the hips. If you're comfortable with that sense of 2 legs becoming 1. And bring yourself down now. We've just been in swimming. We've just had the arms reaching away from us, finding the length through the upper body. So actually, where your arms are positioned now are somewhat more relaxed. And you're just taking your time. Maybe you're moving into a different shape, leaving the floor. Maybe your body's starting to move away from your chest. Sort of moving based on instinctively how it's feeling. What do you need next? And then when you're ready to unravel, we are unraveling by sending the tail down and through and unraveling the body up from there. Now, particularly if you've had your eyes closed and now you're suddenly upright, have a blink, have a look around your space, notice how you feel, and then of course continue your movement up to standing, however you feel most comfortable to do that. And then bring yourself to the back of your mat if you haven't done already. And so here we are with soft knees, finding the floor, and with the feet, you'll take a breath in. As you breathe out, lowering the gaze, softening through the upper body, really lifting and spreading the rib cage. So high ribs are in line with your collarbones, but on the back of your body. Softening knees as you're heading down there. Take a breath in. As you breathe out, send the floor away with the feet. Pelvis is moving forwards as you unravel and you find yourself back up in your starting position. Lowering the gaze. Up and over. Spread upper spine. You find yourself at the bottom next time, really being aware of your foot position on the mat, but walking yourself out into a plank as an option. The pelvis will lower, and then sending the heels backwards and downwards. Changing the gaze from the floor to your own legs. Relax through the upper body, moving intuitively in terms of body, shoulders and arms. Knees soften. And unraveling there for your last one. And there we are. Well done, everyone. Take care.